Reading his bio now. So Dr. Opeyimika Aremu operates at the intersection of medicine and technology as both a medical doctor and a full-stack software engineer. The journey began at the University of Ibadan, where he initially immersed himself in student politics at the departmental level for UIMSA, that is University of Ibadan Medical Student Association, at national level, that's the national body of that same association, and volunteering with organizations like Inactox and Wakaru. Recognizing the transformative power of technology, he strategically pivoted during his medical studies to focus entirely on mastering software engineering. A passionate community builder, Dr. Aremu co-founded the UCH Tech Society to support tech talent on campus. Today, he leads Slaine Labs, a healthcare-focused product agency. There, he bridges the gap between clinical expertise and technical execution, helping healthcare founders and clinicians turn their ideas into working products. When he isn't managing his team or learning something new about marketing or development, he's likely listening to entrepreneurship podcasts or reading. He's currently reading The Optimist, exploring the story of Sam Altman and the race to invent the future with OpenAI. So, ladies and gentlemen, with a very warm virtual round of applause, kindly welcome our speaker as he graces the stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'll just go ahead and share my screen to just talk a bit. And then, so please just let me know if you can still see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, thank you so much. So first, standing on all existing protocol. I'm grateful to be here. So the topic was how do you live a successful double life? And this is paraphrased, by the way, but yes. So first is just looking at this slide, you would see a bright face, like fresh boy, and this was me in 2018, right? And the context here is I had a classmate in 100 level who would come to school with an iPhone, right? And then I wasn't going to school to like learn. I was just going to school hoping that I would like meet that guy every day, right? So like he had an iPhone, hey, is it 10 or 8 or something around that time? And so the pictures that they would snap of me were like really, really good pictures. And so this picture is one of them. And like it just epitomizes how much you grow, like between the time that you enter like school as a student in 100 level to when you finally leave in 600, 700 level as a medical student. And I say 700 level because we spent 7 years plus, not because medicine is 7 years. So to just introduce myself, I'm Dr. Opeyimika Aremu. I'm a medical doctor, yes, no longer medical student. It still feels strange a bit, but then I'm also the CEO of Slaine Labs. And in the course of this discussion, I will just like talk about some of these things in the form of stories. And I really hope that it sticks, and I really hope that you find something. And at any point that you may have a question, you can just note it down, and then I'll get to it at the end of this slide presentation. So yes, so first is, okay, no, I think perhaps skip on. So this is 2022, this is 2020. And if you know 2020 is the year that there was COVID, there was also, and school had to come to a pause.
Your slide is not changing from my end. Is it just me? Okay, it's changed now. It's changing now.
Okay. So 2020 was the year COVID happened, right? We all stuck at home. We all had to learn skills, right? And I will just like talk about each picture and also give some background into the year 2020 for me. So 2020 was the year where I was in 200 or 300 level, right? And I was involved in a lot of extracurriculars, as you will see as I walk through them. So first is Enactus. Enactus is a student organization in UI, right, where we aim to solve problems in our communities by building small businesses. And so what we did, and if you see me in this picture, I'm teaching students, right? And so these ladies and boys were were out of school children, right? So we went on the streets, we found 15 to 30 children, right, who were out of school, who were hawking when their classmates were in school, and we're like, oh, why are you hawking? Some people were like, oh, they don't have school uniform, right? At the time, school fees was free, but like they didn't have school fees. Some people just didn't have bags, and because of that, they were turned back from school. And so we decided, okay, we would teach them during this holiday period that they had, right? And then, so by the time that school resumed again, they will be able to resume with their classmates, right? So we did that. I think this was 2019, 2020, right? And then they resumed with their classmates. But more importantly was that we also empowered their mothers, right? And the story of me entering an actors is interesting. Is that in 100 level, I had been impressed by a senior colleague who was in 300 level, right? Who was writing his first major exam in medical school. But 1 week before that exam was in an hotel in Lagos, right? Preparing to compete in an actors national competition. And so I asked around, I was like, oh, why is this guy in Lagos, his classmates are in school reading, right? So I discovered about the actors and I joined the actors, right? The point of that, or like one of the lessons of that is you need to seek exposure, right? The people you look up to will determine what your journey ends up being like, right? And so for me, it was that, oh, I found out about this guy. I was like, oh, I will do some of the similar things that is currently involved in. And as I did that, my path unfolded. We are doing similar things currently, but it was unintentional. Like at some point, I started to do software engineering. It did a lot more of student politics. But the point is, if you really pick the right people to look up to, right, it would lead to a path where you find yourself a lot more. The second one is Wakaru. So Wakaru is a non-profit, right? So what they tried to do was, okay, they would find opportunities, advice, and career prep, right? So what that means is they will look for job opportunities, or we would look for job opportunities. We would post them on the internet, on Twitter, on Instagram, in a mailing list, right? And then we would give advice. We had something we called Wakaru Santa, right? And so what that meant was we would look for courses and we'll give it out for free, right? And so all of these things I did by just like signing up to volunteer at Wakaru. And I took the Wakaru work, right, super seriously. The mailing list at the time was titled Opeyimika from Wakaru because I would be the one to write the emails. And as I've just mentioned, which may not strike anybody right now, is that I said I volunteered. What that meant was I wasn't getting paid, right? And I think I did it first for like a year before I started to receive like a data stipend of 5,000 naira per month. The essence of this is you need to throw yourself into one or two things that really prove to you that you can do great work, right? For me, that was Wakaru. I had the opportunity to like do as much as I wanted. So for example, you would find me in a cab, right, going home or come back from classes, and I'm looking through the internet, trying to find jobs. I'm going through the job boards of like tech startups, like Piggyverse, like Cowrise, just trying to understand the jobs that they were now posting, trying to post those jobs so that people can apply, right? And what Wakaru did for me, one, is that it proved to me that I can do great work. But two, more importantly, is that because of the access that I had, because I was looking at these job profiles, I was like, I shouldn't just be doing this as like a volunteer role. I should also try and learn a skill of my own that I can now use to work in a startup like this, right? And so I was like, okay, I left Wakaru like in 2021 and then started to like focus on software engineering, which we would get into. But the point is, because I had stayed in the game, I had been in close contact, as I've mentioned earlier, of like exposure. I had now found out about, oh, okay, these are like a ton of startups. These are the problems that they are solving. And I should go and learn a skill, right, to then go ahead and join. But a caveat that I should mention here is that at Wakaru, a lot of the things that I was doing was community building, social media management, email marketing, right? at the time, I thought of that kind of work as work that people will not pay for, right? So that was like one of the reasons why I went to do software engineering. Typically now when I give advice to people, I tell them, oh, you should do the work. You should layer on top of the skills you currently have. So right now, if you find that you write a lot of poems, you write a lot of fictional stories, or you find that you organize events, or that you're a crypto holder, or that you believe so much in crypto, or that you're looking at stuff like that, you can find an applicable tech skill, right? If tech is the thing you want to do, to then go ahead to do, right? It doesn't need to be so abrupt, right? Permit me to say that, right? So like, let's go to the next one. Next one is NIMSA. At the time, in 2020, I signed up to be director of new media at NIMSA. And the reason why this role is very important, and the picture behind the NIMSA text is a picture of the NIMSA on Wikipedia, right? So in my tenure, we made it happen that like this, NIMSA was published on Wikipedia. But if you had asked me then, like in that year, right, that did I feel like I did enough for NIMSA, I would have said no, right? I had a lot of imposter syndrome at that time, because in my head, I thought I was leading people who were way ahead of me, right? At the time, as I mentioned, I was in 200, 300 level, and some of the people that were on my team were in 600 level and 500 level, right? And so I had like a ton of imposter syndrome. I was like, oh, how can I be the one messaging somebody to do something, or how can I give somebody a task to do? And in retrospect now, one, we got some work done, so I beat myself up more than I should have. And I think that a lot of times we beat ourselves up more than we should have. But two is that I realized in retrospect that work is work, right? Like, just do as much as you can do, right? And don't give in to imposter syndrome. Like, we're all figuring it out. I'm here today. I'm like really excited and talking to you and sound so confident. But in every year since I entered medical school, I thought that I would fail an exam, right? And every year I didn't fail an exam. And every year I was shocked that I didn't fail an exam. But I'm here today, right? Like, and that's the exciting thing about it, where if you just believe, if you do the work, it makes sense down the line. So the next one is schoolwork. In 2020, the interesting things, I tried all I could to drop out of medical school, right? I'd tried to go to African Leadership University to study computer science, but that didn't work. My parents were like, nah, my dad's a doctor for some, that should have some context. But the point of what I'm saying is, and so during that time, I was finding it difficult to actually even read, right? It was like, oh, like, why am I reading? I'll soon be out of here. I don't enjoy this as much. But the point of what I'm saying is, one, at the time, schoolwork was extremely difficult. I was failing tests, right? Like, I'd failed so many tests. And if the first exam, or like first major exam that was to happen, had happened that year, I would have surely failed. But like, it didn't happen, right? So I had some more time. And then by 2021, when the exams happened, I had thoroughly exhausted all of my dropout options. And I'd seen that, oh, I'm going nowhere, right? So like, this is where I'll stay. And so I started to like really lock in and sit down to like really read my books. But the point of what I'm saying here is that, one, every story is not as it seems, but that two is a comeback is always possible, right? At the time, like, schoolwork was extremely difficult for me. I kid you not, there was a day that we were writing a test, and I was in the test of like writing the test, and I was sweating profusely, right? A woman who knows me from church and is a laboratory technician there was like, Opeyimika, please calm down for them. Now. I was writing rubbish. He said, calm down, please, I beg you. Do you get what I'm saying? And like, she was like, Otumbu 4 pen. What that means is that I bought 4 pens, right? Opeyimika, please come. I was writing nonsense. Like, I feel that there's like summarily. But the point of what I'm saying too is that a comeback is always possible, right? My CAs were like really bad, but I still passed that exam, right? So like, never give up. And so as I'll talk about in like subsequent years, you would also see the evolution that happened, right? So, okay, sorry. So 2022, yes. So 2022 was like the comeback year. And so what happened in 2022 is that one, my friend and I, as you can see in the first picture, we went to Oscar Fest. So first is, and I should tell you that story because that story is also important. In 2021, I started to like really learn software engineering, like really focus on learning software engineering. But as most people would know, and as you all will agree with me, that everybody has tried to learn a skill at different points in their lives, and almost everybody has failed at some point, right? Like, I know there's at least somebody here that has tried to learn design and has dropped it. Somebody who has tried to learn marketing and has not completed the course. There's somebody here who has said in 2026 you would actually learn a tech skill, or that you would do something new, or like you impress yourself, and you are seeing that you're not doing it yet. And I think that this is where like my story gets interesting or like really nice. And so I'll just go ahead and talk about it. So first is in 2022, we went to Oscar Fest. And so what did we do at Oscar Fest? So the story is, I'd been learning to code. I would come back from school, I'll watch a video, I'll be tired, I'll just stop. I'll be like, bro, I can't, this is boring, right? But then one day I went to my friend's room, and then it was like watching a video, right? It was watching a video that I was also watching, but I'd also like given up on, right? So he then messaged me, or I saw him watching it. I was like, hey, get off now. You're watching this. He was like, oh yeah, he's also watching it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting though, that I'm also watching this, and that I had already paid for a ticket for an event in Lagos, but I don't know how I'll go because I don't know anybody in Lagos. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That do I think you'll be able to get a ticket? I was like, God, I don't know. But I think that some people may be able to sell their own tickets. So he buys a ticket and then lets me know that, oh, you can actually stay at his sister's place, right? So we stay at his sister's place and then go to Oscar Fest. At this time, we have school. So it means that we miss some days of school, maybe like Friday, but then Friday, Saturday, right? But then we go to Oscar Fest. But the most important thing about Oscar Fest is that by the time we were coming back to Ibadan, I knew that there was no way I would give up on this again. And like that is also again to reiterate the importance of exposure, right? That some of the things you would want to do, there's a place or two, or there's a community you would be in, or there's just that exposure you would have that you realize that this needs to work. And like that's one of the things that makes this event series by Writinova super important, where they are bringing students together and they're saying, okay, you can also do great things, right? Or you can already start yourself. You can already, and so this level of registration is super important. But what happened at Oscar Fest is that we saw students like us like have jobs. We saw them have like MacBooks. We saw some tech guys like coming cars that didn't have plate numbers. We saw sneakers. And the interesting thing that we used to do at that event then was that we just look at sneakers. We weren't even looking at your face. We weren't looking at the shirt you wore. There are some sneakers you will see. You just know that, bro, this guy has stored money. I kid you not, right? And so that was like incredible motivation for us. And so when we come back to it, and we're like, guy, we need to make this thing work. There's no more excuse, guy. There's no more excuse. And luckily for us, and I need to also be calling out some of my advantages, right? Like one of them was, we're staying in UCH at the time, like we had crossed over to UCH. At the time, there was light in UCH, like there was almost like 22 hours of light, right? And so it was very easy for us to also fight for it. And so the next picture is 100 days of code. So as we came back to Badon, maybe like 6 days later, I was like, okay, I'll just tweet that, oh, I'm starting the 100 days of code. So I started. And at the time that I started the 100 days of code, we were on strike, right? And it was just a 2-week strike or something, maybe Joesu or Asu or something. Bro, you buy your sneakers, bro, it smells. So yes, and so Joesu, right? And so we had a lot of time to like first do the 100 days of code for like 2 weeks, right? And so we're just like posting every day, oh, this is what I learned today, this is the thing, right? And what happened as a result was that, oh, people started to know me as a software engineer, or they'll be like, Opeyimika, how is it going? Opeyimika this, Opeyimika that. And that really played a role in me sticking with it, because even though you come back from a place with immense motivation, as you may with like this event, it's still important to be able to translate it into action, but also like persistent action. And what made that difference for me was one was posting publicly, right? I'm the kind of person where if I commit to something publicly, I don't want to be shamed. And so it's also knowing yourself. If you put money with your friend and you say, oh, if I don't do this thing, I'll pay you 20,000. You are most likely to do that thing because you cannot afford to give your friend 20,000, right? And then the other thing is, I started to build a routine, right? It gets to a point in your life where your life needs to be so predictable, right? And I'll give you an example, right? During these 100 days of code, or no, I think 6 months after, because of how predictable my life was that, well, I'll go to school in the morning, by around 8, I'll come back, by around 5, I'll bathe, then I'll sleep a bit, maybe 2 hours, then I'll go to the reading room, then I'll code from maybe 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. till the next day, like maybe 4, 5 a.m. Then I'll tweet. Sometimes I'll sleep by 1, sometimes I'll sleep by 2, right? But sometimes also I'll come back from school by 12 a.m., right? And then I'll go to the reading room again by like 1, but I'll just sleep in the reading room till like 5. So like this day was like one of those days where I slept by 1, woke up by 5. Then I was like, oh, okay, let me just go and fetch water upstairs, right? And then I come back, my laptop is no more there. Somebody has stolen my laptop. And the essence of this story is that the person has worked me so much that person knew where I would be at the time that I was there. And they could already predict that at this time I would stand up to go and do something, and then they will pick my laptop, right? Luckily for me, like 1 month or 2 months later, I was able to replace my laptop. Luckily for me, I had friends who could borrow me a laptop in the time that I didn't have a laptop. But the essence of it is you also need to be predictable. You also need to reduce the things that you commit to. In 2022, I'd already left Wakaru, I left Enactors, and I've left a lot of organizations that I was a part of. At the time, I was also playing football, right? Even though I wear glasses, as you can see, I was playing football the small that I could, right? But as I started to like learn to code, I had to leave all of that because my time became a lot more precious. If I have to be in school in the morning till evening or night, then the little time I have per day is also critical to be able to show up for like this coding thing that I was trying to do. The third thing is, if you look at it, this picture is when I just started to when I started this 100 days of code. Like at the time I'd been gymming for so long, so I was like really fit, right? But then as I also started to do the 100 days of code, I also like lost form. I stopped going to the gym. The point of it is, one, it's like your life can get so routinous that you drop like all of the things that you love to do, right? Just to, like make the sacrifice worth it. And typically that's what I ask people these days, that, okay, how much are you willing to sacrifice for this, right? Like now I have the luxury of like, okay, I can work out now, or I can do some press-ups when I want to. But at the time, it was super critical to like really develop that mindset. And the interesting thing about schoolwork at this time is that because I was doing the days of code, and then I was learning to like sit down for long hours to like really read and understand and code, right? It started to translate in my schoolwork too, I kid you not, right? Where that like maybe 2 days to a test, I would just pick up my book and start to like really read it, right? Or spend hours, or like the way that I actually did it at the time was that, just to be honest with you guys, that I'll read a day to the test. So what that means is that I'll read from 8 p.m. to the next morning. I won't sleep. I'll just go and write it in the test, right? I'll typically pass, right? But the essence of it is, it started to translate that kind of discipline, that kind of long-term focus of like, okay, just sit with the books, just read it. If you don't read it, boy, you would fail, right? Or that you would not pass, and all of that. Started to also translate to my books where my CA started to be so good or to be okay, and that made my likelihood of passing exams a lot more realistic, right? Then I think the next one would just be, and at this time I was still suffering. I won't say suffering, but like all I had was allowance from mom, And the food I was also eating at the time was super predictable. I make jokes about it, but I will not make jokes about it here. But the point of it is, like, I was eating the same thing. I typically had like just one shoe. Like a lot of things about me were like one, or like multiple of a few things. But the essence of it is like conviction cannot be faked, right? If you really believe in something, please try your best to simulate an environment where you can really show up for it, right? As I've just mentioned now, I believe so much in, oh God, I need to learn this software engineering thing. I think that this software engineering thing would like really, really help me. And so that was what made the difference in maybe saying that, oh, I would leave everything else I've been a part of, everything else I've done since I've gotten into the university, and I'll just focus on this one thing right alongside medical school. And for a number of people here, I suspect that one of the reasons why like none of the things that you are doing has shown tremendous results is that you have scattered efforts, right? You're doing catering, you have a catering business, you have a jotter making business, you have a bead making business, you have a shoe polishing business. No, bro, like, right. And if you also notice the pattern, it was from this 2022 that people started to know me for like one thing. Before then, it was like, oh, Opeyimika is an actor. Opeyimika is assistant classroom. Opeyimika is he works at Wakaro. But at this point, it became, oh, Opeyimika is a software engineer. And like that made it a lot easier for me to get opportunities, right? If you're going to be a business person, like just focus on your business, like in the first year at least. Don't like try and do multiple things at the same time, right? Focus would like really go a long way in helping you see success fast. And as you see success, you're also likely to stick with it. The other thing is you need to build community around yourself. You cannot do it alone, right? One of the reasons why I was able to sustain this conviction of my own was for my friend in the picture, right? Like in the first picture where we went for this event together. We went for subsequent events together. We did the 100 days of code together. So like just having that together, we had a leaderboard where we could see how much time the other person spent coding in a day, right? If I wake up today and I see that, oh, he coded a lot more than I did yesterday, there's no excuse. Like I will sit down and code today, right? And that's the point of it. Like you want friends who would drive you or who would be able to like just push you when you feel like giving up, right? And so I'll be skipping to the good part now. The good part is 2025, right? So, oh, sorry. So 2025. So 2025, I'm a doctor, right? So I've skipped to the good part, right? 2025. And I think I should just like really distill this a bit. So what happened between 2022 and 2025? So between 2022 and 2025, so 2022, I like really started to like really learn. Like I was really obsessive about learning. I think 2023, I had an internship, right? In 2024, I had my first full-time role, right? And then in 2025, skip to the good part. But yeah, let's break it down a lot more, right? In 2023, I did the HNG internship. It was very difficult, but it required a lot of time. I was also like really sacrificing for it, right? I did it so much that like during a stage of the internship, I fell ill because I was like coding like 14 hours, like over the weekend, right? Like on a Saturday, I would just like sit down for long periods of time and code, right? And so in 2024, I got my first full-time role. And like the story of that is important to say because in 2022, like when I committed to doing the 100 days of code, I didn't just say, oh, I'll just be learning how to code and I'll tweet about it, that's all. What I also did, which was super important, and I think has been one of the secrets of my success so far, is that I message people, right? So like the first person I messaged at the time was, his name is Chinemerem. I said, hi Chinemerem, how are you doing? I'm Opeyimika Aremu. I'm a fourth-year medical student. I'm currently learning to code. I love your journeys. I've loved watching your journey so far. I think the portfolio projects you have worked on are really good. Please, can we jump on a call and let's talk about your journey so far? And so we did jump on a call that weekend, right? So I would like find somebody to talk to during the week. I'll message them during the week, and then over the weekend we'll jump on a call. And so I started to do that every week or every 2 weeks. And so in that 100 days of code, I think I did at least 10 calls, right? 10 to 15 or 10 to 20 at least. But what happened is, I kid you not, at least 5 of those guys are like my really good friends now, really, really good friends, right? And the interesting things, the first guy I reached out to, which is Chinemem, was the guy who recommended me for my first job in January 2024, right? And what actually happened was, he told me that, oh, please send your resume to me, right? I sent my resume to him. He said, oh, I've sent your resume to them, right? They will call you, right? They called me. They didn't interview me. They just said, oh, Chinemem says you can do this. Can you do it? I said, yeah, sure, I can do it, right? Then I came into the company. I started to work for them like full time, right, as a software engineer. But the essence of it is, sometimes people will be the way you skip the queue, because to be very candid with you, it's incredibly difficult, like in this day and age, to just get something, or like to just get a role, to just get a gig, to just get a contract, right? Like you need people. And the essence of it is, you also need to be building relationships in whatever field you are doing, right? Right now, I'm like, I'm building a company. So these days, I'm also jumping on calls with people, right? I'm saying, oh, Chief, how are you doing? How would you do this, like in your company? How do you do this? Like, how do you think we should go about marketing? Because it never stops. You always need to have that mindset of, oh, I need to ask questions here. I need to do this here, right? And so in 2025, I became a doctor, right? And some of the lessons of that time is, one, is that the fears are just in your head, right? If you prepare long enough, you stand a great chance of like doing the thing that seems insurmountable. I kid you not, every year of medical school, I was always afraid. And I was like, how can I become a doctor? It doesn't seem feasible, it doesn't seem realistic. And I kid you not, in medical school, to do medical school without having a receipt is cool, right? But if you do it as somebody who has extracurriculars, who is always afraid, who's always, is a lot more impressive, right? And the point of it here is, one, like building that community. Let that fear also drive you, right? The fear that I had then of like, oh, I may not pass an exam, used to drive me to go to school more, right? Used to drive me to attend tutorials, used to drive me to read, right? And that's also integral in the process. I may not highlight it as much, but reading the books itself is also important, right? And also finding the leverage points. I think for me, I can, when the going gets tough, or when I'm in trouble, I can sit down for long hours to read. For some people, it may be a lot more difficult, right? But like, know yourself and find the advantages you have. For some people, is that, okay, if they see their notes and they read it over and over again to stick enough that they will not need to read it again. For people like me, is that, oh, we can just cram it, or we can just put it in our head like one night to the test and go there and write it. You can't do that for an exam, because like medical school work is cumbersome, it's voluminous. But like, whatever place you can also script by, or like also buy or do something, please, like take all the advantages you can get, right? Then also Slaine Labs. I think Slaine Labs is incredibly interesting because it also highlights the thing of, you need to ask people questions. At the time, I had my full-time job, as I mentioned, but I also like luckily got a gig, like just randomly. And then I was like, oh God, how would I be able to do the two? And for some time, I was like really struggling to do both. And then I was just speaking to a chief, like we went on a walk, and then I was like, oh, well, I'm really struggling to do this. And I was like, oh, okay. But like, you know somebody, right, that can like come in to also help you with this. And I was like, yeah, I know somebody. And then I was like, okay, you do like your full-time work and then pay somebody to do this. And that's honestly what started the whole process, right? I got the job, I was paying somebody to do it. The person that I was paying was really happy to do the job. I was getting paid to do the job. And that little thing then spiraled into getting jobs, right, in healthcare, and then gathering small teams to build them, right? And then that has now spiraled into like Slaine Labs, which is like an healthcare-focused design and development agency. But what that means, I think the small pass to it is, right, one, have people that are smart, ambitious, that you can always speak to about your plans, that you can also always speak to about your problems, right? You don't need to do life alone. You also don't need to do life in a way where you need to make all the mistakes yourself. This person that I spoke to was 3 years ahead of me, right? He was a doctor already by the time I was speaking to him. And for every exam that I had, I was always speaking to people like this and saying, oh, Chief, how do you think I can increase my odds of passing this exam? So what that means is, and interestingly, for my final exams, I made a small tutorial group of like 4 people. And like one of the guys that was in our tutorial group was somebody who had repeated into my class, right? There were a few acts that the guy gave us that not so many other people knew, right? But like those things were like really important for us to pass the exams. Now I'm lucky, I'm grateful, I passed the exams, I'm a doctor, right? But like that's leverage. You must always see the advantages that like really make you go bigger, right? So for example, if you're somebody that you know how to write well and you're a software engineer, write technical articles. If you're somebody who is a product manager and you're good at emceeing or they're good at speaking, sign up to speak at events, right? Organize events of your own and just speak, or like organize a webinar or teach somebody, right? It doesn't need, like, you don't need anybody to choose you. You can choose yourself, right? Then the other thing is co-founder usage, Tech Society. And like this was for like 1.5 years, right? It was when I started to see, my friends and I started to see that, okay, there's actually something here in UCH where a lot more people are also interested, a lot more people are learning. And then we started to like gather a community. It wasn't as efficient as I would have loved, and I think it's one of the things that I wish I'd like committed a lot more time to. But it's also something where you realize that you can just start things. You can just gather people around and organize speakers to speak to them, right? And like the interesting thing about this is a lot of stories that I've told today have been stories of you can just start, right? And it doesn't need to be perfect, right? So finally, schoolwork. I'm luckily free of schoolwork now, right? I've escaped, right? There's a sound, the Snapchat sound of, oh, calm down, you have escaped, right? And that's how I think of it, right? But the point of it is the doubts never leave, the imposter syndrome never leave, but like you can always stay prepared, you can always work as hard as you can always find conviction in the things that you're doing. Do you believe enough to stay? Do you believe enough to do the thing that you're doing long term? And always find leverage, right? The more you are exposed, the more you find, oh, okay, there's this person doing the kind of thing that I want to do, and is doing it in the US, is doing it in the UK, is doing it in Unilag, and is striving at it. Okay, let me give it a shot, right? And the more you can find those exposure points, it increases your odds of success. So what are the morals of this story? So in 2020, just grab opportunities. I volunteered at Wakaru. And the interesting thing about like the volunteering process at Wakaru is that in 2025, when my sister was looking for a job, right? 2024, she was looking for a job, and I just graduated from a private university. I was like, oh, I wrote a message to like my friend who was the owner of the company. I was like, oh, please, do you know any roles that my sister can apply for? She just graduated from this school with this grade. And she was like, oh, okay, sure. And then like within 1 week, I started like 2 interviews that she was already doing, just purely from recommendations of that friend. And then in like 2 or more weeks down the line again, she had a job, right? From just like recommendations from like a few of my friends. And the point of it is grab opportunities, do a great job, right? Also journal, right? Some of these pictures that I've used have come from like my posts or like my yearly reviews on Medium, right? And so 2022, like be a happy beginner, right? Don't feel like life has left you behind. Don't feel really bad that you're just learning what you're learning now. Because I think that's some of the reasons why we don't try, right? You're like, oh, I can't be learning about AI now. They've been talking about AI since 2022. I'm already late. You are not late. You are not late. You are early. Like, no matter what you choose to do, you are early. I kid you not. If you can think of something now, I can tell you a way that you are early, right? And that's the important thing, where don't think of it as you are late, because to survive, you would always need an advantage. And so for me, when I was like doing software engineering, or like started doing software engineering, advantage was I'm fine jumping on a call with a stranger and talking to that stranger and asking the stranger questions and getting them to become my friend, right? Some people can't do that. Some people just believe in, okay, they would obsess on the code and get better at the code, and then that's how they would like get their own job. Fantastic, right? But the essence of it is you should always find the one minute thing or the two things that allow you excel at this role, or that allow you do better at the thing that you're beginning at, right? Don't, no matter what you start and no matter who you start it with, you are all like never starting at the same starting line, right? Because for me, for example, even though I was studying software engineering, I had built a network of friends like in the past, like through like the roles that I'd done before. I'd been a pressman in the past, so I was good with writing. I was comfortable talking to strangers, so I was good with like, oh, chief, please can we jump on a call? And I would ask questions. I was curious, so I could ask questions on calls, and people feel like, oh, okay, this guy's done his research, right? And so the other thing is do it all in public. It's really difficult. I know, I kid you not, I still struggle with this every single day of my life. Of like, God, like why do we need to talk in public? But I've seen that like people cannot come to your room and know what you are doing. People cannot know how much you care about the things you care about, right? It's only through action, right? So like show up, like use your phone camera to record yourself talking. Like just start content creation. Just start whatever you has been on your mind to start, right? But like do it in public, right? If you're learning a skill, like talk about it in public. Talk about it with your friends. If you have a business, post about it. Let your friends see it, right? And like this is not advice that I'm also giving you, and I feel like, oh, okay, oh, this chief doesn't need this advice. This advice that I'm hearing from my friends every day of like, oh, we can talk about like this your company more. We can talk about the things that you guys are doing. And so it's something that we are all learning, and the more important thing is do it in public, be happy as a beginner, but also do it with people. Don't do it alone. Don't feel like, oh, I'll just learn this thing. If I learn it for 6 months, no, like do it with people. Find people that you can do it with. Find people as accountability partners. Find people as advisors. Find people as like that you can teach or give back to, right? The 2025 is that, yeah, just like expose yourself more to things and like build agency. Like you can do anything you set your mind to, but also you have to build community around yourself, right? Down the line, I could have added it here, but like now I can look back and see how the dots have connected. Things are cooler now. Oh, I didn't think that if I did the workable job well, oh, that she would recommend my sister for a role, that she'll be able to help with like a friend who's looking for a role. Like there's just those nifty things. Oh, and there's just so many beautiful things like that. Of that, oh, it's because I showed up here and did my best here, or that I worked so hard and got a feature here, right? Okay, interestingly, I got featured on Tech Point in 2025. The person or the journalist that recommended me or that told them that they should interview me was also working at Wakaru, right? Like when I was working there. So the point is, we are always auditioning for a role, right? Or like we are always auditioning for the next thing, like regardless of what we are doing currently. So like do your best every time, like do your best work, and if you commit to work, show up and do it as well as you can. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I'm really waiting for everyone.